Hello, I'm One of These Days Football and welcome back to our Fantasy A-League series for the 22-23 season. I am slightly annoyed at myself as I wanted to create a review of the Mariners game last week, but I just simply ran out of time and life got on top of me and I wasn't able to make that. So my goal for next week is to make a match review for one of the games this weekend. Not really sure which one, we'll see which ones turn out to be the most interesting, and then I'll pick one, hopefully able to release a review to see how I go at that form of content. So straight into our Game Week 4 review. It was a very interesting game week. We had two massive scorers and then a solid performance from a lot of other players. Goodwin and Cummings were popping off, especially the Cum Dingo, as he's now being referred to, just racing around seemingly everywhere as part of that attack after the man was sent off versus Western United. The other player that really impressed me was Quoll. Once he came onto that field, he was electric. He obviously caused the red card and then produced a lot of attacking endeavour after that happened. It was really good to see him in action before he heads off to Newcastle in January. So an overview from here. I was really not expecting Wellington to score 2 goals and that really surprised me. So Glover didn't really get a return, but it is what it is. Sometimes that happens to you when you are a fantasy defender. Wallen's game was okay. He did end up getting an assist though, so he does get those points, and that's really why we have him in the team, is for his attacking output. Aspropotomedes gets that red card and has a negative impact on our team this week. I'm probably looking to move him out as he won't be able to play this weekend. And the last defender would be Jamison, who sat on the bench for City, didn't come on. Hopefully will be starting again for City this week after they conceded twice against the Wellington Phoenix. Ballard in the midfield, 5 points. He was actually really good both in the first half and the second half. I thought the Mariners were on top. They had a lot of attacking endeavour. They just got hit on the break twice, and that happens. And then once they got to 10 men, Western United, the Mariners just ran riot, really. The Western United offered no ability to score a goal at that point, and I think the Mariners could stop focusing on any sort of defending and just unleash, and that really plays to their strengths. Berisha, he was a player that I brought in for Troisi as a boost transfer because Troisi was not going to play for Western United, and I was a bit worried about that, and then I panicked, used my boost, got Berisha in. He didn't really do anything, only got 2 points. I think it's probably a bad fantasy player. He's a good football player, bad fantasy player. And I probably should have just not used that boost, allowed Aligic to come on, get those 2 points anyway, save a transfer. And maybe, I think Berisha did drop in value as well this week, so Tracy didn't. Could have been a better play just to not worry about that boost, not freak out. Definitely learn from that if I can't get a player in who I think has potential to actually score points, then I probably should just leave it, and that's why I have Aligic, because he is the cheapest playing player. Nani was actually really good, provided a lot of attacking endeavour. Again, I think Victory are an attacking team and show a lot of push going forward and want to score goals. I just don't think they've been lucky enough to get the returns that they probably deserve. And Nani's value's dropped again, but that's not really what I'm worried about too much. I think that's a good return. He will get better, and with the addition of Bruno Fornaroli, Victory look like they could be a team that might start finishing more chances. Goodwin as a captain, really good, only 3 points less than Cummings, which, when your captain gets over 20 points, I don't think you're complaining when you're doubling that kind of score. Really good to see him continue to be that returning player for me, getting those points every week. Again, I think if you think Adelaide are going to score, you've got to captain Goodwin if he's on your fantasy team. Austin and Arzani in a similar boat this week, both producing what I had hoped is their worst case scenario, which is even when they don't score and the team doesn't produce, they're still a part of that attacking play and able to get those 5, 6, 7 pointers, even when the ball's not falling the way they want to and their team or they personally are not able to score or assist a goal, which is a big thing in fantasy when you're turning over just a little bit more points than the others. If you're getting 5, 6 instead of 2, 3 on your off weeks, I'm just able to get that edge over other players. Obviously, the Cum Dingo went absolutely insane, went berserk, was part of everything. Once the Mariners made Western United go to 10 men. I don't know if they made them, but once the Mariners had that player advantage, Jason Cummings was absolutely everywhere. He was crossing the balls in. He was getting on the end of everything as well. It was just really, really good to see. That post-match interview, which I've got a picture up now of, I think just really sums up why we as the Australian football public really, really love him. What a great guy. Hope maybe he's on the plane to Qatar. That'd be pretty awesome for Australia. We'll see how we go. We got 102 points at the end of it. We boosted our ranking up to 1,625th, which is not bad. Always climbing, always going up. Getting that green arrow if you play FPL is always important and really good to see. Moving on to transfers, we have 2 players coming out, 2 players coming in, obviously. Aspropotomides, as I stated, will be dropped this week mainly because he's on that red card and now his value is so high that I can trade him for someone that will get points. Secondly, I do think he will drop in value because of this red card. A lot of people will be doing the same thing as me, and if I am to keep him, I'll just end up losing value. I think, as I said earlier, his time in the sun is interesting. I'm not really sure if MacArthur were as defensively sound as they may have got the results for, but we'll see how they go. I can monitor it this week, see if they've done another good job without him, and then maybe bring him back in on the cheaper, which would be really good. The player we brought in for him is Harry van der Sar, and Harry van der Sar is a really, really good player for fantasy. For me, he's like fantasy gold because Zach Clough is out for Adelaide, which means that Mr. van der Sar is now playing as an attacker. He's a winger, and defensive players playing as attackers in fantasy is amazing. And like I said, it is like gold because they're not only getting the potential chance of getting a clean sheet and those defensive bonuses, but now they get more points for scoring and assisting goals, and he's more likely to do that because he's playing as an attacker. So he costs less than Aspropotomides. He's actually playing this week and he's playing as an attacker while he's classified as a defender. I think Harry van der Sar is the big in this week because Zach Clough, I don't know how long he's out for, but it could be a while. I think it's a while, and Harry van der Sar is the defender to target, 100%. Berisha is also coming out. I think, as I said, he's a panic boost transfer in. I don't think he's a good fantasy footballing decision, and I'm going to rectify that with this change, hopefully. Bringing Marchand in for the victory. And as I've said before, I think Victory are really, really good going forward, and he offers that. He offers that ability to go forward and get attacking returns, and especially with Bruno Fornaroli coming in, they will start seeing more defined finishes, more goals. I think will happen for the Victory. Even without him, I still think they've been getting unlucky. Beyond that, I also think that Newcastle and Perth are the 2 worst teams in the league at the moment. They're playing that way. I said last week I think it was Wellington and Perth. I think now rectify that. It's Newcastle and Perth. I think they're the 2 teams you want to target for attacking players, potentially even defensive players. They look a bit toothless, but I think Victory have been getting unlucky for how much they've been going forward, and I think Marchand is one of the guys who allows them to do that, and he's really, really cheap. So I think he's also a player that could grow in value. Another reason to bring him in. Onto the squad selections for this week. So this week on the bench we've got Hall, Hinger, Elliott and Elegic. Elegic always on the bench almost every time. Elliott and Hinger again just don't make the cut this week as we have some very, very strong players on. Now those strong players start with Jamieson and Glover as our defensive duo for Melbourne City. As previously stated, I think Perth are a team to target. And they are playing Perth in Melbourne. So I think that is probably a game where your Melbourne City defenders are going to see a lot of return. I was also thinking about McLaren. McLaren could be dynamite for this game week. Hoping he's not. Hoping that it's maybe a 0-0, best case for me. But I think Jamieson comes back in after last week, City conceding twice to Wellington. I think Jamieson has to come back in if he's fit. Glover, I think when Jamieson comes back in, gets a lot stronger, obviously, for those points-wise. I just think that Perth are not very good. City are very good. With Jamison hopefully coming back in and starting, we'll see high points return from both of those players. Now, Van der Sar and Walland, both Adelaide United players playing against Western United. Western United didn't look too great to me against Central Coast. They got lucky on 2 breaks where I think Central Coast committed badly going forward. They didn't really cover the space in behind them. So I do think Adelaide have a really good chance in this game to win it, even though it is not at home for them. Mainly, we are looking at Van der Sar playing as a right winger, as stated before. So he is just, for me, is a no-brainer. He's a defender playing as an attacker. It's too cheap. There's too much potential for returns. I think he's a great player for this game week. In the mids, we've got Goodwin. Again, if you think Adelaide United are going to score, and as I hinted at before, I think they're going to win, you should probably captain Craig Goodwin. Nani and Marchand are the victory power couple, as I'm now calling them, as of 2 seconds ago, decided in my midfield, and that's because Victory have so much attacking output. I think they're going to return against a poor Newcastle Jets team back at home, potentially Fornaroli starting. I think this could be a Victory blowout. It could be 4 goals for Victory tonight. So I think these are both really good signings to have. Ballard, again, really good performer for the Mariners last week. May have not got a super large amount of points, but for that kind of price tag, he's already gone up. I think he's a really good player to have. He facilitates a lot of the Mariners players around him, feeding the ball forward, can often pop up in the box as well. The first half he made a really good dynamic run through the back, popped up in the box, nearly got an assist or a goal. I can't remember if he took the shot, but I did notice him popping up in that box, which is really good for that price tag. Austin and Arzani and Cummings at the top. Austin first, he's playing at Sydney as the Brisbane Roar in Brisbane. I think that Hingett, well, the reason that Hingett hasn't started is because I think Sydney are going to score, but I also subsequently think Brisbane will score. And if you think Brisbane will score, Charlie Austin is the man. Hopefully he's the man. He's been the man once. He was okay last week. He put in a shift. He didn't get any fantasy points, really got okay returns as stated, but he didn't get the goal, which we're looking for, but he did put in a shift. He really worked hard for the team, and that was good to see. I think he's really embedded himself well in Brisbane, and I think you should hold on to him. If you've got him, if you don't have him, maybe not a transfer in, like I was so hard on him the week before. I think you should hold him. I think he's worth the hold. Arzani versus Wellington in Wellington is always a weird fixture for any club, especially Perth distance derby. Woo! But any club in Wellington is hard. I'm not really sure what to expect out of this game. Wellington have been a bit of a wild card team, and I'm not sure what to expect, but I think Arzani's just a good forward to have. This is probably a middle of the road game, one of those that you just pop him in for and see what happens. Lastly, the Cumdingo, the man himself, the 24-point scorer last week. He's playing away against Western Sydney. I think Western Sydney are beatable. I think that the Mariners are an attacking team, and I'm not sure what the outcome will be, but if I had to choose, I would choose the Mariners to win this game. I think the Mariners are the better team and will produce a better outcome. Captain this week, we are going to give it to Goodwin. Again, if you think Adelaide are going to score, you should probably captain Craig Goodwin. I'm following that rule. It's been working for me so far. He got 21 points this week, I think 15 or something the week before. So, you just have to trust it. I think he's the best player to captain this week, as I do think they're going to beat Western United. Wicked. Well, that's been my Game Week 5 review. Thank you guys so much for this week. The Cumdingo, let's see if he strikes again. What a week from him last week. And hopefully I'm able to get out 2 videos next week. One, a match review of whatever game I've decided to be the most interesting from this weekend. And then a fantasy Game Week 6 preview. Thank you very much. Have a lovely week. Goodbye.